Everybody. We'll let everybody give a couple minutes, let everybody roll in here.
Well, Caleb, one of my questions was answered right off the rip here because we don't use Zoom. We use Teams for all of our video conferencing in the agency. And I was wondering if MeetGeek was going to automatically end up in this, which it is, as you can see.
Yep.
It's recording it. So
yeah, we Lindsay and I thought about kicking it out, but we let it roll.
the beautiful thing, there's no emotions there, so you can kick it out. You can just kick it and it'll be fine.
I used to use Otter all the time, but Kat kicked it out of so many meetings. I'm like, I'll just discontinue use.
Yeah. How did it do with industry specific terms that were outside the normal LLM stuff?
Not great.
No.
Not
Okay.
great.
That's the problem we're running into with MeetGeek as well.
Bradley, can you hear us?
1 second.
I can. How are you guys?
I'm good. Good.
Sorry, I'm
Thanks
having
for coming.
technical difficulties over here.
It's okay.
I've never done this before.
Better you than me.
Yeah. Just a second.
All right. Lindsay, you let Kat in.
Have we started?
Not yet. We're letting people trickle in.
Good. I was hoping there'd be some buffer time.
Yeah. I'm a professional, brother.
Understand. Would not expect anything less.
Guys, hopefully this goes well. My boss is watching today. So
She's really intimidating.
yep.
I'm only watching because Ryan, Holden, and Bradley are on.
I know.
So I'm just here to realistically be supportive of them and then to partially micromanage you. Yes.
Make sure we behave ourselves.
No, I'm not concerned about you guys. I am mildly concerned about what Kate might be up to because he had a minor surgery today and then decided to go on a public forum and try and conduct this with you three. So I'm grateful for you three. I'm concerned about Cabe as always.
As always.
Is that considered mini micromanaging then?
Yeah.
It's just
yeah,
a little bit of it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
That's funny.
All
I don't want to
right.
ask you to spill the beans on procedure, man, but I hope you're recovering and I hope you don't pass out.
Thanks. I think we'll get there.
Right there. That's rule.
Yeah. All right. Well, for everyone's
Cat, don't make me call HR.
Is Mindy on here? Mindy's not on here. HR's not here. We can disclose everything we need to about Cabe. It's totally fine. We're good.
help, Brent, help. All right. Well, just for respect out of everyone's time, including our esteemed guests and panelists here, we'll start this thing off. Just as a quick intro, I'll introduce you guys and then we'll get right into it. So I've got so Ryan's up in the Ryan Bruckmeyer. He's up in the Toledo area and also one of my golf buddies. So Ryan, I wanted to tag you in here because, you know, much to my surprise, you said like you're surprised that everyone wasn't growing in this market, and you seem to have your foot on the gas. So thought it'd be valuable to have your perspective and kind of give a little bit of the how you're growing right now. So if you could just kind of tell us a little bit about your agency, real quick.
Yeah, sure. I'll go super brief, and if you want something else, let me know. So right now there's 4 of us. Myself as the agency principal, 2 hybrid folks that they both do everything, for lack of a better way to say it. And then I have a part-time kind of back of the house, runs quotes, admin oriented type stuff. So 15 years as an independent agent, 2 years with State Farm prior to that. Worst years of my insurance life. Independent agency is great. So
Awesome. And what about like personally, what do you spend most of your bandwidth on right now on the day-to-day?
In the agency?
Yeah.
Growth. I mean, team member growth, both individually to each team member, and then also to going out and looking for more individuals to plug in, right? Finding the people with the right strengths to match what we need from an organizational standpoint to continue to grow.
Awesome. Lastly, man, just last insight. What have you kind of identified that needs to happen? Maybe like early 2024. Anything on the horizon?
Add another hybrid, full-time hybrid. Insurance experience is great. If not, no big deal. If the right strengths are in place, we can teach that. But that's absolutely crucial to our success.
Cool. Thanks, man. Thanks for joining us and sharing. Next up, I don't know if I need to introduce this guy, Bradley Flowers. Just continues to give to the industry and was actually sparked this conversation because he just had a post on the importance of prospecting. So figured why not tag him in. So Bradley, thanks for joining us. You want to give a little bit of rundown on your agency?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Super humbled. We're located in Mobile, Alabama, Portal Insurance. We are 12 people strong, and we're in the middle of a merger. We're acquiring another agency right now. So in 45 days, we'll be 22 people strong, I think, or something crazy like that. So I'm right in the middle of the throes of that.
All right. Well, I don't think I need to ask what you're spending most of your bandwidth on. I think that's asked and answered.
It's M&A, but not by design, just by happenstance. That's basically all I'm doing right now. And hiring. Yeah, right before this meeting, I was in another meeting in that room right there, prepping for a new hire interview we have coming in right after this.
Cool, man. What about is that what's taking up your time early Q1 24, or what needs to happen?
A lot of acquisition, a lot of, we're in uncharted waters right now as far as agency size. This agency now is larger than any agency any of us have ever worked in. So figuring out growing pains and, changing positions and that sort of thing. So.
Sweet. Well, thanks for sharing your perspective and being willing to get into it. So last but definitely not least, Holden Wilson in the Cincinnati area. Honestly, he has a bit of a reputation within Indium of being like the high net worth guru. And so don't have to share all the secret sauce, but definitely want your perspective, Holden, on what you're doing and how you're growing in this environment, especially in your niche. So can you tell a little bit about your agency?
Let me unmute. This helps by unmuting first. So I started my agency in 2009, right after the meltdown of 2008. I've been working for another local agent here who specialized in farm and ag and rode in, 18 states around the country. Yeah, and it got to a point where it was either sign a non-compete with him and live as an indentured servant or break out on my own, which I chose to do. Literally launched the agency off of my living room table, and my wife and I came up with the name and the slogan, all that stuff, and approached all the carriers we write with, of which Indium Market Source was one of them we hubbed with at my prior location. So we were kind of the first fold of that, and walked with like 98% of our clients, and have been working diligently to grow the business since. With regards to the prospecting on the high side, it's a lot of introductions. It's a soft sell approach. It's not a hard sell. It doesn't bode well for my personality type. Caleb, that I've told you that, but it's something that if you want an opportunity to work for people that are in that circle, you need to make yourself available, but not overly aggressive, because saving money is part of the acquisition, part of the play. But that's if they were interested in saving money, they wouldn't be with higher end carriers. So it's a balancing act. And then, as you guys all know, everybody who works in the business every day, the most important thing is being available when the phone rings or the email comes over, that you're there to respond to it. I think that anymore is the greatest differentiator, that there's so many people that just are not accustomed to being diligent and responding to people's needs. It's a soft overlay, and it's easy to distinguish yourself as a result. Anyway, that's
Awesome.
more than probably is needed, but that's my idea about it.
No, good insight. Good insight. And what do you? I think I know this from talking to you, but what are you spending most of your time with on a day to day? Most of your bandwidth?
Oh, it's the inner workings of the business, and then prospecting, following up. I was out of town last week. I had somebody approach me and say, "Hey, we're closing on a condo in New Jersey on Thursday." So Kelly helped me get that taken care of, and there were several things we had to deal with just to get it to table. And but it's done, and so the mission's accomplished and the client's happy, which is the most important part about having somebody. When you're writing $25,000-$30,000 personal lines accounts, you need to make sure that your clients are happy, because it's not easy to remarket them now, and
that's for
harder to find them, but harder to remarket them. So that's the
You're not wrong there.
No.
Well, thanks for being willing to join us here.
Of course.
Definitely appreciate you. Well, Bradley, you kind of opened yourself up to this by bringing up the topic. So prospecting, I think we all agree from being here, is integral. So what do good prospects look like for you right now? Do we lose you, Bradley?
I think he's muted.
I am muted. That gives me a chance to say what I was going to say again and make it better. For us, we have a few niches, but we're pretty broad in that sense. I would say we're probably right in the middle of a generalist and a specialist, but we really niche down more so on the type of business owner we prospect, not necessarily the type of business. And for us, obviously, we have a pretty extensive client avatar, but really the two things we look for is, one, we want them to think like a business owner, not a guy or a gal that owns a job. And then two, we don't want them stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. That's a saying we say a lot. And those are really two things. If they fit those two things, usually we'll figure out a way to bring that client on. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Got to follow up. So it sounds like it's kind of like mindset and intent related. How do you test for that? What goes into figuring that out?
A lot of questions in the beginning. Some of that might be about their prior broker relationship, their prior carrier relationship, prior claims, things like that. How long were they with their prior broker? Where did they drop the ball? Normal stuff that everybody asks, but it's a lot of qualifying questions in the beginning, because everybody on this call, I think, agrees bringing somebody on at your agency as a client and they stay 1 year is not good for anybody involved, including the client. So it's just having a lot of those conversations. And I think those type of conversations, especially with the carrier relationship as it relates to the client, is never been more important than it is right now in this current market. So
I hear you, Ryan. You're shaking your head in agreement. So are you trying to sell to everybody, or do you have a process to figure out who your prospects are?
Well, two-part question, right? So first part, sure, if they fit, and they don't. So the reality is they don't fit. A lot of people don't. So yeah, absolutely shaking my head, because Bradley, preaching to the choir maybe in this call in particular, but our ideal prospect or ideal client is, again, less about a market vertical or something along those lines, and it's personality. It's personality of a client that fits the personality of the agency. And so the best way to encompass it is we need them to have a real risk management personality or mentality going into it. And then we're going to have an outstanding relationship with them. Plain and simple. If they don't care about risk management, if they care about quote, we're just not the right place. And so that idea of lots of questions, absolutely. We tell them right up front, that's what we're looking for, and get the buy-in that, hey, this is what our relationship looks like with our clients. Is that what you're looking for? And even if they're not, and they say yes, they've said yes. They've committed to that. And so I'm okay if it's the first time they've ever experienced it, because let's face it, a lot of agents don't do this. So we're okay teaching them this process as we do it. But we need that commitment. So I love what you said, Bradley. A one-year client's not a great client. It's not good for them. It's not good for us. So absolutely.
And sometimes too, it's educating them so that you can tee it up for next year. And one of the questions we'll ask people is, we're in a coastal market and we get a lot of clients who live in Indiana and they're buying a storage unit down here, an apartment complex or hotel, and they end up usually with me about 10 days before closing because their broker up there promised they could do something and then they couldn't. And one of the conversations we'll have is, hey, who have you talked to? And a lot of times you'll hear, oh, I've talked to everybody. Like, well, that's actually your problem. You need to pick one person who has all the tools they need to solve your problem, not, you know what I mean? And so like we had a guy recently that reached out and it was that exact scenario, storage unit. Man, I've talked to everybody. And I was like, I had to explain to him basically how commercial insurance worked. I'm like, look, here's the deal. I can help you, but 10 days before closing and you've already talked to everyone, like your account's not going to look great to a lot of these carriers and underwriters and wholesalers and that sort of thing. And oh man, what can I do? Well, get with me next year, 90 days out, and we can definitely help you. So a lot of times, a lot of those people end up coming back to us after we have that initial conversation. It just might not be today. And a lot of my job when it comes to prospecting is, producers want stuff now, and they're really not worried about next year. And it's affirming assuring them, hey, look, here's the deal. Like, still have the conversation, still go through it with them. You're going to need a prospect this time next year too.
A lot of credibility comes with kind of walking away.
Yeah.
If I can chime in, I agree with both Bradley and Ryan. Am I on mic here?
You are.
Can you hear me? Yeah. I mean, Bradley, I'd say the same thing, stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. And Ryan, I'd say the same thing to my clients. Does anybody, it's like 100 level insurance class every time you sit down with somebody. Has anybody ever talked to you about what this is? I say, that if you go to buy a bar of soap, what you're paying for the soap and what you're getting. If you walk across the street and can get it for 50 cents less, why would you buy it here? You understand that? Do you understand what the value of your insurance product is? Value is subjective. And to Ryan's point, the value is not only for them, but it's for us too. Because 1 year and done, one and done, you're spinning your wheels. The difficulty doesn't come obtaining all the work comes after you obtain the client and get them on board. Then all the work comes. You're looking out for their best interest. You're doing the changes. You're updating vehicles. You're changing this. You're buying a new location. You're doing whatever it is. But value is subjective. So teaching them what the value is and what that does is that brings your value to them by just informing them and letting them know, hey, look, we're here to help you. But it's a symbiotic relationship. So the better you can help me help you, the better off you'll be. Let me work for you. I want to work for you. I appreciate the opportunity, and that seems to work well because on the national market side, those guys are all looking at units. The independent agent side looks at premium. So it's a different perspective on how you're getting to the same goal. But if you're just looking at units, that has very little to do with what the quality of the account is, driving it down. If, $100,000 house and a couple cars, you're looking at $3,000, maybe $3,500, $4,000. If you're at $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 houses and an umbrella and some back, and you get to $5,000-6,000 in a personal lines account anymore pretty quickly, on just that, which would be people that you're seeking in terms of demographic. That's somebody who's making a couple hundred grand a year that can afford to do that, $250,000-300,000 a year, either individually or as a single person. So and then it helps, of
Yeah.
course, like, I mean, I've had people that if I could work for a lot of my friends, I'd have 25 people working for me. I'm fortunate in the demographic that I grew up, but I have a friend of mine that I work for in Philadelphia that let me underwrite an account for him. I've known him since I was 7 years old. It took him 15 years to let me write his account for him. It's a $50,000 personal lines account. That's just one house. So it's a patience, and like to Bradley's point, next year, I'll be here for you when you're ready to come and talk to me. I will be here, but just give me a shot and let me show you how I can be of value to you.
Yeah.
I think the biggest mistake newer producers make, and I've done it twice, so I know firsthand experience. I did it when I was captive, and I did it right when we started Portal. Is you're so worried about that next check, you're so worried about putting revenue on the books that if
Right.
somebody doesn't want to buy, it's just like some will, some won't. God bless, who's next? But I almost get more excited when I set up, or when one of my producers sets up a really good X date in the system, because the percentage likelihood of us bringing that account on next year is like double it is this year when they really didn't know us. And you almost, in a way, have to, I say with prospecting, you almost have to almost rewire your brain the way you think about that dopamine hit when you sell something, and trick your brain into getting that when you actually add a prospect to your pipeline, even if it is for next year or the year after or that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's a transparency to the onboard, the sales process that we bring, and in my marketplace is unique, where a lot of what people are used to is not a transparent insurance process, whether they're going online or they're talking to a quote-driven agency. Boy, they're really left in the dark, whether they know it or not. And so when we're coming to the table from that very first conversation with, this is what the process is going to look like, and here's what our expectations are of you, and here's what your expectations really would should be of all of us as professionals, but and we're getting that agreement up front. I really think that helps us in the long run. I mean, we don't close every account, of course, as much as it'd be great to, right? But we close a pretty high percentage of our accounts, and the ones that we don't, to your point, absolutely, those are conversations for next year, 5 months out, 11 months out, 16 months, 17 months out on down the line.
So it sounds like you guys are like mentality, buyer intent, how they do business with you is almost as important as what business they do. And it sounds like you're chasing a lot of X dates, I'm hearing a lot of like processes must be in place in order to do this. So you guys have a tool that you find that is absolutely indispensable to your process and makes your prospecting easier.
A few, but is there more specificity in the question, or do you want me to just answer?
Whatever comes to mind that like you think that you and your team would be up a creek in trying to do this, if is there a tool that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I reference a risk management mentality in this, and we've designed an internal document we use called the risk management roadmap. Eventually, it'll be something we're internal and external with, and really, it's a holistic view to our client's life. We don't have insurance solutions for all of their risks. We have insurance solutions for a lot of them. And so there are cases where we're pointing out, we don't really dive real deep in conversations about X, Y, and Z, but we certainly can about liability and property risk. So the roadmap from a concept or from a real high level is crucial to our process. Then of course we've got some systems in place that really help us keep track of a client through the process, but I'm sure we all have our own systems for that. But
yeah, thanks for that, Ryan. And what about guys? a specific favorite tactic, things that especially in sales and trying to drum up new business, it's almost like if you keep doing the same old thing, it becomes outdated, and what worked 6 months ago doesn't necessarily work now. So what's a tactic that's working right now for you guys, and why do you think that is? Let's go with Bradley.
Yeah,
For us, it kind of goes back to my original statement. One thing we say to almost every client, especially if they tend to, a lot of our clients tend to lean towards a little bit of a shopper mentality when they come to us, mostly because I guess they've never been with an agency that explained how the insurance buying process worked. But one thing that we say almost in every meeting, in my opinion, or as far as I know, is especially if somebody's trying to pepper the market or what have you, is we'll say, look, here's the thing, you are effectively accomplishing the opposite of what you're trying to accomplish. What do you mean? Well, here's the thing, you're going to every broker in town or every agent in the state trying to get your insurance taken care of. Let's say it's a real estate portfolio. It's let's say 300 house real estate portfolio. There's not that many in a coastal market. There's not that many brokers and carriers that are going to look at your account. If the same 2 or 3 people are seeing your account every single year, guess what? A lot of times with coastal E&S, those underwriters get commission too. Their margins work the same way mine do. It doesn't benefit them for you to keep the account with them for 1 year. So what are they going to do? They're going to make it worth their time. So by going out and peppering the market and the same underwriter getting 6 submissions on your account from 6 different agents is not helping you. You're literally accomplishing the opposite of what you're trying to accomplish. And a lot of times, especially with real estate investors, that's like a bit of an eye-opening moment. And we'll have the conversation. Look, you need to pick one agent, one carrier, if you can, and stick with them for a few years. And then let's go back out to market and show them the track record. Some of our best wins on larger real estate portfolios or condo associations have been us showing the broker, hey, these people have been with the same carrier for 15 years. Like they're not, you know what I mean? And those people tend to get the most help. So it's just a lot of word tracks around that. It's working really well right now, especially in this market, because I don't know if you guys saw, one of the top trending topics on Twitter yesterday was property insurance. Like people are starting to get their renewals and are starting to notice.
Notice what?
Increases.
I'm just
and
kidding.
non-renewals. And okay, I thought those were the pain meds kicking in from the surgery.
This is
Okay.
the
Only
only
put you on
reason I'm
blast.
here. Only reason I'm here because he's going to ask that question. Only reason.
Had to.
Jeez. Notice what?
But as far as a tool, you asked about a tool earlier. For us, it's,
Yeah.
I'm sure nobody's familiar with Agency Zoom, but Agency Zoom is critical for us and tracking our pipelines, keeping up with X dates, auto following up with X dates to keep it in front of us and that sort of thing. If that went down, we would be in a world of hurt.
Thanks, Bradley. Holden, any particular tactic? I know you're going for a
Yeah,
client
it's not. I
list.
mean, it's not so much a tactic as I think it's just a belief. I genuinely care about the well-being of my clients, for better or for worse. When I'm doing my best work for them, they're feeling secure, and that's the value that I try to bring, is that it's if you've got somebody who's just there to turn and pin a 12% commission to an account every year, they're just staring at dollars. They're not really interested in the client's long-term well-being. And I tell them that when I sit down with them. I said, your interests are my interests when I work for you. And it's not a song and dance. It's the truth. I care. And that's, I think, been lost on a lot of things in the last 20 years, longer than that. So the simple things that became complicated when large corporations had to hold symposiums on what a soup spoon was. I mean, these are things, and you laugh about it, but it is laughable. But at the same point in time, like, there was a reason that things worked for a long time, and then the bottom line driven. You look at what happened when everything was shipped overseas, and there were supply chain issues and all the rest of the stuff that occurred during COVID. It was a nightmare, and that was all because things were driven to the very bottom line, and the result of that was chaos. So if you want to have some type of continuity between your clients and yourself, it's got to be more than that. You don't have to live it every single day of the week, but I mean, you need to give a damn, and you need to work hard to protect their interests, because by doing so, you're protecting your own at the end of the day. And I'll say, I'll say to my clients, sometimes I sit down and I'm like, this is not a used car. This is your well-being that I'm, in charge of. And my E&O deductible is $5,000. An E&O loss is, how many accounts do I have to write to achieve that? And if you're looking at it in those perspectives, it's not worth being flippant about. Do it right, and do it right the first time, and take their interests at heart. And then you're not, ending up in a bad situation. You try to do your best, but I've heard nightmare stories about clients with nationwide brokers. That my wife's mother and stepfather had a condo in the W in Austin, and a gal that moved in next to them had a $1 million house out on the lake, got hit by lightning, burned to the ground. The national carrier that I'll not name, refused to pay for it. And little did they know that her family owned the smelting company that makes all the curb stop covers for the gas and water in the country. So needless to say, they were paying for it. You can't treat people that, whether they're wealthy or not, you can't treat people that way. It's not right.
Yeah, I hear you. Really good points. Now, what if prospecting is all about building pipeline, really, when you break it down, and you can have a lot of confidence in the business the more pipeline you have. So what's an untapped resource, untapped opportunity? What's something that you guys are looking forward to trying out, maybe here in the near future? Something you haven't done yet. Ryan, what are you looking to test out?
Man, we're playing with AI and automation to stay in touch with. So we really view our client as twofold. One is, of course, the insureds who purchase from us, but the other half of that is, how did they find us, right? How did that client come to us? That's our other client. And we work really hard to maintain our referral relationships, because that referral relationship might be 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 new prospects this year. And that skilled soft handoff we get is worth so many through our website, or through the phone book, or whatever some of the traditional lead sources might be. So we spend a lot of time on making sure our relationship is very positive with those lead sources. Automating some of that conversation we have with our lead sources is one of my 2024 projects, really. So how do we do that in a real natural, meaningful way, so we don't lose the personality? We have so much damn fun with our clients and our referral centers. I don't want to lose that piece of it. But I do want to expand on that. I want us to be able to individually manage 20 or 30 referral centers, or let's push that to 40 referral centers, right? We can do that. So we're just getting dirty on that.
Yeah, use leverage where you can, and then maximize the personality where you can.
Yep.
What should we be thinking about, Bradley? Like, what are you excited to try out?
I don't want to go down an AI rabbit hole, but it's funny how no companies had any AI strategies, and then overnight every company added a .ai to their domain. Just speaks to the power of how fast technology moves. But for us, we're working on a tool. Then there's a few people doing this now, a few agents that I know of, but we're working with I'm all about like high level data and being able to use AI and certain tools to keep tabs on what's going on in my organization because I'm relatively hands off with the customer. My people are really, really, really good. We're working with our VoIP provider on building an integration with ChatGPT to basically transcribe and summarize all of our phone calls, every single call, inbound, outbound, and internal. And those transcriptions, once they're transcribed, it's going to summarize it in a similar to like Otter does. If some of you guys are familiar with Otter, in a third person kind of way. And it's going to go two places. It's going to go to a Slack channel that myself and my two managers here have access to. So very easily we get a high level view of every conversation and what's going on in the agency in real time, and then have certain trigger words in there that, hey, such and such said cancel. You might want to know such and such said a cuss word, things like that. And then the second place it's going to go is it's going to go into the client file as a note in the AMS, which if you think about that, if I've got account managers that are getting paid $25 an hour, and they're leaving 120 notes on accounts every single day, not only did I just save them a ton of time, but the notes I'm getting are probably way better than what they would jot down in real time. So that's probably the thing that sort of we're working on, that we're just waiting on some things to happen that we're the most excited about.
Awesome. Well, I want to open up for a little bit for some questions, and we've got Mike Taylor has jumped in. He's going to leave some time from him to share like how to put processes around this and how to be intentful about making sure you do prospect. So, Lindsay, have we had any questions at this point, or we can make this an open call to questions? So if our audience has any questions for these chaps, we can get them in. This is an AMA, so it can be personal questions.
Hey, but I want to know what brand vest you're wearing.
I can get you one. It's Patagonia. I have an embroiderer, so
we're only like 15% vest on this call, so that's pretty low. We need some more vests in here.
I went a bit off book, so this is
It's
not
cold in
necessarily
Ohio, Bradley.
It's not necessarily sanctioned by Indium, but I went rogue.
Hey, it's 68 in Alabama, and I was wearing a puffer jacket this morning.
There you go.
That's cold.
It's a cool 68.
Yeah, let's go with that.
All right, Ryan, we got a question. Do you have any training for the risk management, or how do you sell risk management side of the business?
Man, great question. No formal training in it. I'd call it 15 years of on-the-job training. I'd say from the very beginning, I took a holistic approach. Even my time in a captive environment, it was because of the way that agency contract was set up, everything was dependent on each other. So right from the rip, we were talking across the board property. We didn't even talk in these terms, right? We talked about number of cars, etc., like just silly stuff compared to what we do now. But right from the rip, it was, where's your home, where's your car, where's your health, where's your disability, where's your life, where's your retirement, all the way across the board. Whether or not we could touch any of it, it came in that way. So the risk management perspective has been in our wheelhouse for 17 years. It's really been the last 5 or 6 years where we've gotten really good at it. But to your point about risk management training, that's also in my 2024 plan, is to do some more formalized training. Now, do yourself a favor and go Google risk management consultant. 90% of them are insurance salespeople. They don't do risk management. They want to sell you a product, right? So it's more of an anomaly in the marketplace than that it may appear at first, but.
Thank you, Ryan. If you're not paying attention to the chat, Brad says congrats on the independent agent mag cover, and he wants a hat.
He can
He
get
wants
a
a
hat.
purple hat.
Nobody gets the black ones but me, though.
Cat, this is just turning into a merch.
Now I'm
$19.99.
really glad.
I didn't know I was supposed to bring merch to sell.
For $19.99, you get a hat and a vest.
I'm really glad Lindsay's here so she can keep a running list of what merch members want. So far, I'm hearing vests and cool hats. So yeah, Lindsay, gonna have to take care of that.
All right. Well, I want to get these guys out of here. Thank you all for your time. I think it's
Absolutely.
valuable. This for those of you who have team members, you want to see this, we will have this recorded. So we'll share that in a bit. So thank you guys, Holden, Ryan, Bradley. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you
Have
all.
a good day, y'all.
Absolutely.
I'd like to welcome up Mike Taylor from Premier Strategy Box. Mike shared with a small crew earlier in the year, kind of the putting rails on the prospecting process and how to be intentful about actually doing it. So turning it, wishing is not a strategy. So Mike, thanks for being willing to jump in here.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to talk about a great subject here, prospecting, something we all hold near and dear to our hearts. I remember when I first got in this business 30 some years ago, I went into a personal lines agency and I said, how am I supposed to prospect? Where am I supposed to get leads from? And some of us maybe that have been in this industry long enough can relate to this, but the agent I was working with at the time basically got his big phone book out and he put it in front of me and said, here you go. You start with the A's and you work all the way to the Z's. So I went in and did what he told me to do. And after I got done with the whole phone book, we still remember what phone books are. I went back to him. I said, where do I get more of my leads from? And he gave me that same phone book and he said, start from the A's and work from the Z. I work to the Z's. And obviously that prospecting has changed a lot since then. We got a lot of information that obviously is available to us at our fingertips now with the internet and everything else that we have. We're talking about platforms that we're using now to pull up information. But the main thing with prospecting that I learned from that is the way we grow in this business really comes down to one thing. And that is, how many new conversations can we start? That's as complicated as it needs to be. How many new conversations can we start? And knowing that, what I learned from doing all those cold calls, which I know we all hate cold calls, but what it did for me was it gave me a lot of practice. It gave me a lot of at-bats, getting used to what I was putting out there and seeing what worked and what attracted customers to me. And that's really what prospecting is all about. It doesn't have to be difficult, but it has to be consistent over time. And the first thing that we do when we work with our producers is we make sure that they're planning their strategy for what they're going to do when it comes to prospecting. And the very first thing we do is make sure that it's on their calendar. That has to be there. And when we have digital calendars in this day and age now, we're able to manipulate those time blocks that we set up on our calendar. So if we have prospecting that we're going to do, say, 4 days a week, and it's going to be the first one's on Tuesday at 9 o'clock, for instance. If we come in on 9 o'clock and we have a fire to put out because one of our customers or one of our teammates has come to us and say, hey, I got a problem for you to fix. What we can do, though, is we can go to our calendar now and move that time block somewhere else so we make sure it gets completed. Because going back to consistency, the number one thing we do is start conversations. We have to make sure that those are consistently happening over time. By being able to manipulate your time on a calendar, you're in control now. You don't have to say, well, I can't get to prospecting today because 9 o'clock came around, I had a fire put out. And how many of us are in the firefighting business here? We're all there. That's what we do. We solve problems. But the first thing we need to do is make sure that we're starting new conversations. So we do plan on the calendar. The other thing we do is we make sure that prospecting time, we call it uninterrupted prospecting time. So it has to happen, and you can't be interrupted when you're sitting there starting new conversations with potential leads out there. Why that happens is we want to make sure that we get into what I call the flow state of conversation. It takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of momentum to sit there and get into that flow state of having those new conversations with new people in order to set up your appointments. So we want to make sure that once we get on a roll, we stay in that flow state for that entire time that we set aside on our calendar to prospect. So I work with a lot of agencies that have multiple teammates, and what we suggest is, or what we require them to do, is share your calendar so that your teammates, everybody in the agency, understands, here's my prospecting time. Do not disturb me. I have to make sure I get this done. When we do that, we start to see that people do get into that flow state. You get 1 or 2 calls out of the way, or if you're doing walk-ins, you're going out and introducing yourself to new people. And you do those first couple, yeah, it can be a little rocky. It can be a little uncomfortable. But then if you're able to get in that third one and that fourth one, right after you finish the last one, then the conversation's starting to get easier. You're starting to be able to adapt and almost predict what's going to happen when you start getting those first conversations with new people. And we want to hold that flow state for as long as possible from there. I'm sure we've had some instances where we've tried to do something, we get interrupted, and it's hard to get back into that rhythm, going back and having those conversations. So we want to avoid that. The other thing we do too is we make sure that we have consistent prospecting on our calendar, and it's not a long period of time that we're trying to sustain those conversations. So what I usually suggest for my advisors, is that they set 30-minute call blocks, and that's it. No longer than 30 minutes. You don't want to get burnt out. We want to make sure we are able to do that consistently over time, and we are still maintaining that flow state and trying to set those appointments on there. It's very, very important. So those are some of the things we do to get the ball rolling, and also getting our mindset right as far as what we're trying to achieve when we're prospecting. The main thing that we're trying to accomplish on that first phone call or that first walk-in, whatever that first conversation is we're trying to get our message out there that relates to our customer in a way where we can set appointments. That's the number one objective for prospecting, is set an appointment or set a time where we can get and have a meaningful conversation with that potential lead. We got to remember, we're interrupting their day whenever we prospect. They're not ready for having that kind of conversation with us. And I did hear some really good things on this call about trying to provide value now as an advisor in this market. We don't want to be the person that says, hey, can you let me quote your business? We want to be the advisor that says, hey, can I sit down with you and really think about how to best protect your family or your business? That usually requires setting aside a specific time. So the number one thing we teach our producers when it comes to the prospecting is just try to set the appointment. Try not to get in those long, drawn-out conversations that lead to nowhere in that first conversation right there. So that's some of the things we do. And the other thing we tell our folks to do, especially if you're going out and you're prospecting to businesses, there's a lot of free information out there on businesses on the internet. Part of your preparing for making those prospect calls, you should have a time block on your calendar to make sure you do a little bit of research on those companies before you call them. You might know somebody on LinkedIn that's in that company that you could reference. or you might just go to the web page and you're finding out exactly what they do. You can bring something up in the conversation when you're on that prospecting call. So do a little research before you get into prospecting. And remember, when prospecting time comes in, whatever that looks like, if it's walk-ins, call-ins, if you're going to networking events, that time is specifically set for having conversations. It's not designed to say, okay, I got to research the next phone number for the next business I'm going to go to or call. I'm going to try to find the next business when I'm driving around. You have to have that planned out and ready to go so you can have those good conversations during whatever time period you set aside for yourself. Going back to calling, no more than 30 minutes. So perhaps that can get us started with a conversation there, Caleb.
Yeah, Mike, thank you. How many, so 30-minute call blocks, what do you like to see producers do? How many blocks a week, or and does that change from seasoned producer to new producer? How do you coach on that?
So it has to be consistent. It has to be consecutive. So what we usually start out with is Tuesday through Friday. Depending on what that ideal client is, will depend on what time of the day you're calling. So if you're calling on, for instance, contractors, obviously you're going to try to hit them early in the morning. If you're calling on like a restaurant, that's probably going to be after lunch, the lunch rush, probably around 2, 3 o'clock. And then you don't want to call later than what we found, later than noon on Friday. You want to hopefully call early in the morning on Friday. And what we found is most people are in a good mood because they're getting ready for the weekend, and they'll probably set an appointment in the morning, but afternoon on Fridays, they're already in weekend mode. So you don't even want to waste your time trying to get an appointment after that period of time. Mondays, usually we set up for prospect research, making sure you have your call list ready. You know where you're going to go if you're going on walk-ins. You have that ready to go. You're planning on that Monday, and then you can hit your stride Tuesday through Friday. Good question there.
All right, don't let them off the hook easy, guys. We don't get Mike too often, so want to put him through the ringer. Anybody got any questions for him?
Hey, Mike, what type of, we talk a lot about, I guess, the carrot and the stick. What type of stick do you think is appropriate for producers who just don't do what their plan says they're supposed to do?
Good question.
That's a great question. The carrot would be, hey, maybe there's they're going to write more business, obviously, but maybe there's a bonus with the KPIs. What we try to work with producers to understand is they can't control a whole lot, but they control their activity. So they can control the time that they're putting in, the number of phone calls they're making, the number of businesses they're walking in. So if you can set up KPIs as a goal for them, if they're achieving their goal, perhaps there is a bonus at the end for achieving those KPIs on there. If they're not meeting their activity, again, we can do a lot of training on how to sell, what carriers to go with, but we can't make them at the end of the day pick up the phone or walk into business or start these new conversations. They have to be able to do that on their own. If they're not meeting those objectives, then you got to have a serious conversation with them and say, hey, look, if this might not be what you're cut out for, perhaps there's another spot on the team for your talents, but you have to have that open conversation, that hard conversation with them and say, hey, look, the way you're going right now, it's not going to make you successful in this business. So usually that accountability portion of it, we have a KPI scorecard that we use. And if you hold up that scorecard and they've set goals for themselves in those KPIs and they're not meeting them, that's like holding up a mirror in front and say, hey, look at yourself and be that critique yourself as far as how you're going. Most producers will say, hey, this is either for me, I'm going to change, I'm going to get better, or they'll say, you know what, this might not be the best position for me. So just having those conversations helps, and having an activity scorecard really helps as well. Brent, does that answer? Is that clear? Is that a clear answer for you?
Sure. I mean, and I guess that's always the hard part as an agent, right? You bring people in, you hire them, you think they're the right people, and you just keep trying to figure out ways to make it work when sometimes they're just not the right person.
The accountability scorecard is a great measure, because what we do is we work with them to set their own activity goals. And then at the end of the month, you can come back and say, here's what you've done. And the numbers speak for themselves. You don't have to be aggressive or come at them in a negative way. You say, here it is. This is what you produced. Either you're getting there or you're not. Great question.
That's a good point, Mike, because you can probably, if the goals are aligned with, okay, well, this activity will get you this potential amount of deals, which equals money. So if they're bought into the benefit of doing all the activity, it's their idea, right? It's this is the path to doing what you set out to do.
If you like, I can share the scorecard that we actually use, and I can kind of show you. I can show you better as far as what they actually do. That'd be all
Are
right.
you able to share this? Yeah,
I
think you should be able to share.
Okay, let me see if I can do this here real quick. There we go. So this is a blank scorecard that we use, and we have our standard here at PSB. And this is designed for commercial producers, but you could do the same thing for personal lines as well. We have a standard that we set. Mick and I, over the years, developed this to know that if we want to generate 6,000 revenue, we got to hit these kind of activity numbers to get there. We show them this, and if they're starting out, they're going to set their own goals, and they're also going to set their revenue goal as well. And then as the month goes on, they fill in the actual column here. Then what we also can do, you see that they have new opportunities. We're tracking the opportunities they have in their pipeline. We're tracking, hopefully they're going to maybe some networking meetings. They're doing outbound calls. They're sending electronic communication like emails or texts. They're going on and introducing themselves on walk-in visits. All of this activity and getting referrals down here, all of this activity should be leading to prospect meetings that they're completing, which leads to presentations, and then they can start selling off those presentations. And it makes it real easy at the end of the month, because I have tremendously honest producers. They rarely meet this standard. They get close to meeting their goal. And then we can talk about the actual stuff. We can talk about then as an accountability coach on what's happening in your prospect meetings. What are you saying? What are the conversations that you're having? How can we make that better going forward? When you make a presentation down here, what's causing you not to be able to close the sale? How are the presentations going as well? So it brings up, it's easier for them to retain and recall the activity they've done for the month and have meaningful conversations when it comes to counseling and accountability coaching.
Yeah, it's hard to get into quality coaching when you don't have the quantity. So that's the first step. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, we're at the hour here, and I want to be conscious of everybody's time, but I also want to
I ask Mike a quick question.
Yeah, please.
Hey, Mike, what's
Hey,
so the traditional 100, if you get 10% of the 100, that would be pretty good, right? And then what's a realistic time frame for a new producer? So you bring a kid in, he's got no experience or very little experience. So, you cut your teeth, you're thinking like 2 years, maybe before you can realize that, this might not be for him, or maybe he's gained enough traction to say, you're doing well, and we'll find a way to get a few more treads for you to really get you to take off. What's in your mind? What's kind of that scenario?
I give a lot of leeway if the activity is there.
Because it's hard. I mean, it's hard.
It is. But if I start seeing that a person's not willing to pick up a phone or go out and introduce himself, I can't coach that.
No.
And so quickly I have to make that decision is, is this person cut out to be an actual producer, or they might have maybe a better role because maybe they have a different skill set that can help the team somewhere else in the organization. You don't necessarily have to let them go if you have maybe another spot for them, but producers, they're not everybody's producer, as we know. But again, having them be accountable for their activity, that will tell you really quick if they're cut out for this job. And I wouldn't say 2 years, I'd say no more than 6 months, probably 90 days, because you're going to find out real quick if they're
if they'll be willing to do. I meant for them to get traction to generate any revenue for them.
Oh, if they're hitting their activity goals, they should be getting there pretty quick, because what you can do then is if they're having appointments, you can now counsel on what they're saying in those appointments to make that closing ratio better, to help them to close business. That's what we can do. So yeah, if they're actually hitting to Caleb's point, their volume of activity, they're having appointments, fantastic. We can make sure that they're having everything they need to do to close that sale.
Right. Yeah, we'd say you can't coach desire.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. Thank you for answering my question.
Yeah,
good question.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm willing to keep Mike on the hot seat as long as we got questions. So because I know Mike will tell me if he's got to run to another appointment.
I'm good. I set up my whole afternoon for this. So. Kim came on. Kim, do you have a question?
No, I just wanted to say that's a great point. I would say 6 months as well. Another thing to see is that producer getting referrals?
Yes.
If they are, then they're doing their job correctly.
Yeah, and part of our sales process, ends with asking for a referral when you made somebody happy. You won their business, they're feeling good about the relationship. It is your duty for yourself to make sure it says, hey, is there one more person you can introduce me to that I can do the same for you? That's very important. And the faster they learn to do that, those goals that we were looking at on the scorecard start to change, because maybe they don't have to do as many cold calls if they're really good at getting referrals. And you can set that goal now higher for the referrals because it's working. And you can keep driving that activity, that habit right there.
Hey, Mike, I'm glad you brought up referrals, because talking to Holden and Ryan and Bradley, obviously, and I know the way you guys approach it. If you try to sell to everybody, you sell to nobody. So if you're being discerning with who you're going to, you're not all the prospects are going to work out, right? It's not going to be a good fit. So what's your take on asking for referrals, even if it's a no, right?
The key to referrals is you need to understand who your ideal clients are that you're trying to bring in through your prospecting. Who is a good client for you, either personal lines or commercial? What does that look like? Because when you know that, then you can train your customers on who your ideal clients are. They can look for those ideal clients. You can tell them, look, I don't write everybody. You're one of you as a new client, you're one of my chosen few, right? You're my VIP type people that I like to do business with. And I love to do business by word of mouth. Here's the people that I can help. If it's personal lines, I help families that have, a couple of children, 2 or 3 cars, vacation home, whatever that looks like, you can let them know this is who I can really help. And now you're training them to be aware of that. And they're not sending just everything, because that doesn't get us a whole lot, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, Kim will write anybody, but I think she's an outlier there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If I got a carrier and a need, why not?
Save yourself.
No, that's a good point. Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Anybody else have anything to run by Mike? Or Ryan is still on, and I think Holden's still on too. So yeah, any questions for anybody before we let folks get their days back?
Does John have anything for me? John Horvath?
I do not, Mike. I do not, but always good stuff. Thank you.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, prospecting is like working out. You can't get any results unless you do it you do it on a consistent basis. That's the way you grow, either your body or your book of business. And nobody likes to do it. But if you get it done, you start seeing results, you start feeling better about it, and you want to keep doing it. That's the thing. Always be working on your message. Yeah.
Great stuff as always. Always good seeing you, Mike. Thanks for being willing.
Absolutely.
Holden, Ryan, thanks for making our members better. Guys, this is what we're trying to do. This has been a dream of Lindsay and mine to get into the members, helping members get better, bringing on some of our choice partners to help the like iron sharpen iron, so to speak. So this has been cool to see to come together. Thanks for everybody for joining and contributing. So expect more of these. And don't worry, Ryan, Holden, we won't tag you back in too soon, but we probably will tag you back in. So thanks everybody.
I guess
Happy
if there's
to
a
assist.
vest, I guess if there's a vest involved, you know.
I know a guy. So thanks everybody. Good seeing you.
Have a good day, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You
We'll
too.
see you
Thank
guys.
you.